Hello everyone, I'm playing Standard Prococate versus Gruber, who is sporting a very cool Nerf hub deck. If you remember me talking about Gruber introducing, revitalizing my interest in KEEGAN lane, well, this is the deck. This is the game that uh, started it all. So let's start with the game. I play Proco. First turn Proco is always nice, and I see a Sensitivity Grid, which is the worst, because after drawing twice with Proco, I realize I don't have enough credits to trash the Sensan Grid. And that's the problem, because now he can score an Astro Script off the top of it, because I didn't install my SMC from hand. So this was a big mistake early on. It's very subtle, but what I should have done was to install the SMC on my last click, instead of running last click, realizing it's a Sensan, and realizing that you can score an Astro off the top of it. I can't let that happen. So I'm definitely going to install the SMC this turn. So here I think I nope, I ran R&D. I think I should have double procode here, and then install Astrolabe SMC, but that wasn't the case. And yeah, so basically here I just ran HQ, and then just to poke around to see if he has any agendas in hand. He probably does, but I'm not hitting them. And then I install my Astrolabe SMC, after which he places an upgrade on R&D. So I kind of know that he's playing the awful KEEGAN lane here, so I'm not going to even bother running R&D at this point. That being said, this might actually be a good time to run R&D, because I don't mind getting my SMC trashed by KEEGAN lane. What I do mind, however, is once I set up my board state, he's able to trash anything he wants, and that's not a problem. That is a problem. So he continues asset spamming, and yeah, it gets a bit tough for me to check his remotes at this point. So I just basically Proco up. I think Proco is a pretty good call today in a world filled with food courts, because you really need the longevity through the mid to late game in order to stay relevant. Quality time Kate does fade off after a while. Once you're past the burst, it's kind of difficult to get ahead of food courts, especially if you're not on that all important match point to close out the game. But why am I talking about food courts now? Back to this game. Team sponsorship got trashed, and he's advancing something in the remote. I apologize for the poor screen resolution. I did not capture the whole screen, as such you can't really track my credits or Gruber's credits. So this is actually, yeah, going to be very confusing to follow. But I'll do my best to commentate on this. Now here I run HQ because I have a Utopia shard in hand. Utopia shard's always great. It's useful in nearly any matchup, and at worst it's a mini legwork, so why not? So I run HQ here, and he taunts me with an Archangel. Well. Now I can bust out the Sai for this, but do I really want to? That's 3 credits to bring out and another 3 to break, but the worst thing is the Sai is no longer on R&D or the scoring remote. I'd much rather have the Sai there. So instead, I'm just going to take the Archangel punishment, and that makes Archangel all worth it for my opponent, because he spent 4 credits to rest at ice that cost me 5 to break, and I'm never running through it again. Archangel is so dang good. The worst thing is I actually could have let it fire, but I couldn't afford to, because he would bounce my Proco, and that would set me very far back. If I were playing quality time Kate instead, that wouldn't be a problem. He can bounce anything he wants back. I don't care. So I'm actually in a pretty big rut right now, because I believe I'm pretty poor at this point, and I haven't seen much in the way of money. No lucky finds yet. All I'm finding is scavenge, maker's high, not very useful stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely not in a good place right now, and as such he's able to safely score the agenda in the remote, but instead he chooses to play a couple of sweet sweets for big money. Problems. Well, I draw, and I finally hit the lucky find, and I think I play it right here. And yes, I really badly needed the money here, I believe. And then I played the Sai, director at R&D. So yes, I'm definitely preparing for the R&D assault right now. In the meantime, he scores an NAPD, which is pretty good for me. It's not an Astro, it's not a food initiative. It's a normal NAPD that is not worth too much for me. or him, because I don't want to steal it and he doesn't really want to score it. So things look good. Also means that he probably hasn't seen a single Astro script yet, because he would have scored it if he had one. So this is looking a little desperate for him. This is time to place R&D pressure, knowing that I can get maximum value out of accesses, since R&D probably is quite stacked. I find a Raven. Well, seeing that my board state is okay right now, I decide to continue on with the run, taking the tag, and I get hit by KEEGAN lane. Well, not much I can do about that, but at least KEEGAN gets trashed. I lose the SMC in return. I do trace past the Data Raven, so losing the SMC is not the worst thing in the world. He didn't trash a side, which means that there's no code gate on R&D. He doesn't res the innermost ice, and I access a second KEEGAN lane, which goes in the bin as well. So 2 of his 3 KEEGAN lanes are in the bin. So far so good. Still need more money. And I believe I did clear the tag, because the tag was cleared by him using KEEGAN. KEEGAN removes the tag when you're done with it. So yes, that's something to keep in mind. I have double Maker's Eye in hand, so you bet I'm going to use that very soon. Here, I play the Maker's Eye, taking the tag, knowing that it can't do much to me as long as I clear it at the end of my turn, which I will dutifully do. He is poorer than me at this point, I believe. This is why I'm able to safely run through this without worrying about too much. The Eli. That Eli. Couldn't do anything about that. Didn't have enough money to bring out the SMC to pop the dog. So this was very good play by Gruber here. He could have resed the Eli last turn when I was making the KEEGAN run, but he chose not to do so. Instead, he saved it to really put a halt to my Maker's Eye, which was pretty huge. This means it's much harder for me to win now. I'm still on 0 points. I'm in no good place at all. So yes, mistakes were made there, but I'm going through again. This time I'll be able to click through the Eli, I believe. I should be getting the dog out here, but I think I'm pretty desperate at this point. So desperate, in fact, that I choose to let the Raven trace fire and hit me. He has 1 token on the Data Raven, so that's a problem. I find his 3rd KEEGAN lane, which goes in the bin, an Enigma, and a Caprice Nisei. So I basically got rid of all of his defensive upgrades, which is always nice. That said, KEEGAN lane doesn't really do much against Kate. Look at my board state now. A KEEGAN lane wouldn't do much at all. Trash my Sai, it's not even going to break anything on R&D at this point. And I have a couple of clone chips as well, so he can't really do anything to me. The biggest problem is having to stop his remote. That's a huge problem. That definitely is. I'm not exactly sure how to go about doing this. Even Claude is not very useful now because he's not playing fast advance. He's just doing everything slowly in his remote. So I think at this point I need to just lock down R&D. I believe that's what I do right now. I mean, I could try to contest his remote, but I know that there's probably a Caprice in there, and I probably cannot get through because I don't have anything that is directed at it. So I do run archives here. I think he has chucked a couple of cards, and there you see all the defensive upgrades in the bin. And he scores a second NAPD. Well, again, thankfully it's not a food. He tried to bait me with that to look like a food, but it was only an NAPD, which means that he hasn't been seeing his foods or Astro scripts at all. Both of us are getting pretty bad draws. I wasn't getting my money early on, and he's not getting the agendas he needs. He could be fast advancing Astros right now if he actually saw any. So I don't care at this point. I'm just going to play my Maker's Eye and blow through the Eli with my dog, which I finally found. And I should be able to see 3 cards here, a Project Bill, Pack Campaign, and an Astro. There the agendas are. So that's huge. That is huge. That puts me back in the game. He doesn't have an Astro token, so we are neck and neck. In fact, I would say I'm ahead right now because I do have a lot of money. I may not have any breakers, but I can just lock down R&D right now because Raven to me means nothing. Not when there are 3 KEEGAN lanes in archives. And with all my money, I can definitely afford to trash anything that's on R&D, which means I can dig deeper down for the agendas. Now I'm going to lock his remotes, make sure he doesn't do anything funny, like sneaking out agendas. Although at this point I should have realized by now that he has no agendas at all, because all he has been scoring are NAPDs, which is the worst. I go through R&D again. Again, this is basically preventing him from top decking any agendas. And this will only net me one card. I really wish that I have an R&D eye right here, but whatever. I'll take that. At this point, Data Raven's pretty loaded, and I hope he doesn't run Psychographics, because that could just instant win him the game. The Clot's still in my hand, there's no Clone Chip or SMC on the board, and he unloads the tags of Data Raven, so now I'm tagged to Oblivion. He removes the Raven and goes for a plan B, because by now he knows that the tag punishment plan has gone awry, all failed, because all his KEEGAN lanes are in the bin, and he apparently hasn't been seeing Jackson Howard either. So instead of doing the futile, he decides to ice up R&D, which he doesn't res. I'm not sure why. I think he didn't have enough credits at this point, and I top deck a food initiative. So the game looks to be in my favor now. One more agenda wins me the game. And he installs something in the remote and goes for the double advance. So that is probably the game winning global food initiative. And this is what I've been sneakily saving up for. If you notice, ever since the start of the game, that scavenge in my hand has been sitting on the leftmost side of my hand, nearly not visible given the screen size, but now it's going to pay off because there's a wraparound on the remote and I'm going to get through. He then reses a special offer and the Caprice. So the special offer gives him enough money to play the Caprice side game a couple of times and score the food should I not get through. So good for him. He wins the side game, but I'm out of dog tokens. At least that's what he thinks. What he doesn't know is that I've been saving up this scavenge so that I can refresh it and go for another 2 more side games. So it's now or never at this point. Is it 0, 1 or 2? I bid a 1. And nope, he bid 0. One last shot. It's now or never. Don't you just hate it when it comes down to side games? Well, the thing is, I had 3 chances. The chances of me winning should be 8 out of 27 chance I lose, which is 19 out of 27. That's a pretty decent chance. More than 2/3 chance of getting through at least once in the 3 side games. But I don't. I spend 0, he spends 2, and he scores the food to win. Unlucky there, but that's the name of the game with Caprice Nisei. So what happened there? That definitely seemed like my game to lose. Well, even though I managed to get the R&D lock with Data Raven being completely invalidated, I wasn't able to close out the game because of Caprice Nisei. Caprice single-handedly won my opponent the game, and he quickly realized that, and we did a post-mortem discussion on it. And now looking back at this commentary, I do agree that Caprice basically was the only thing that could stop me. The other exception being a Jackson into 3 KEEGAN lanes being shuffled back to R&D, but that would take too long because I was already on match point. The chances of me finding the final agenda would be pretty high. So basically the only way I was going to lose that game was triple Caprice loss, which happened. That's the problem with KEEGAN lane. It's meant to do more or less the same thing as Caprice Nisei, except that it doesn't. It doesn't instant win games at all because, yeah, it simply doesn't. This is the problem with a lot of tech punishment cards in the game right now. Things like bad times, things like information overload. I mean, information overload is nice, resistor, pachinko. All these hinder the runner just a bit, not enough to win the game, which is a problem considering that you spend so much effort, time, and money into snapping those tags on the runner. Short of playing Scorched Earth and Traffic Accident, tag punishment is just not in a good place right now. Psychographics is pretty decent. You have to build a deck around it though, and that costs deck slots. KEEGAN lane is just 1 notch slower than Psychographics, and as was evidenced this game, it didn't really help with my opponent's game. I mean, it didn't help that I trashed all 3 KEEGAN lanes. That didn't really help, definitely. But at the end of the day, you deck slots are so tight nowadays that your cards really have to be high impact. You cannot afford to play subpar punishments such as KEEGAN Lane when there are better options like Psychographics available, or even Scorched Earth Traffic Accident if you're willing to give up the Caprice Nisei. So that's it for this game. It's still fun to play around with KEEGAN Lane. I think he's a semi-decent card, but just not competitive enough. Well, thanks for watching Happy Net Running. Goodbye.